Dr. Vince, how do we learn?
Well, it's important to look at this slide. We find out that we learn best by participating in activities. Second, by simulating the activity, then by teaching the activity, then watching a demonstration of the activity, watching moving pictures, viewing pictures, hearing words, and then reading. And as you can see, reading actually gives us the least number of connections. What's very important in any time we're doing an aerobics, you have to be receiving information and you have to be expressing information. And by doing this two-pronged attack, we build connections. So, for instance, if you have on this right-hand side a vision cell, all right, and over here is a naming cell, and you learn a language, English, that says dog. So you see the dog, it connects, and you say dog. However, if you learn another language and say, let's Italian, you say cane, and that's another connection for the same word, dog. Third, if you use French, Chinese, Japanese, and so on, the sight of the dog is connected to 7 or 8 different other neurons. If Alzheimer's comes along and knocks out a couple of those connections, there still is another one left in order for us to identify what we need. And as you know, as we age, what occurs? When we're looking at a moving picture and we see a star and we say, I know his name, it is, and all of a sudden we hit a blank. And then we say, oh, he also starred in that other movie and it was with that actress. And then all of a sudden, we come up with the name of the actor. What we have done is the same thing that we have done as if we needed the name of a dog. If English has been knocked out and Japanese, and we have the connection with the Italian, we can name it cane, and we know what it means. It's also very important to remember how many types of memory there are. There's sensory memory, there's short-term memory, and long-term memory. In Alzheimer's disease, what is affected is really our short-term memory. Sensory memory, I always describe the 3 types of memory like water. There's gas, there's water, and there's ice. Sort of the gas is like the sensory memory. It is something that we have told, and so if I give you 5 numbers, you give them right back to me. That is a sensory memory. It's immediate recall. However, if I gave you 3 words, like I did my mother, and then asked for them 3 minutes later, that's short-term memory. And that's sort of like water that dissipates after a period of time, within 24 hours or less. And then there's long-term memory, which is memory that is sort of like encased in ice, which we can recall even years later. And it is very important, the more that we practice, in fact, the more strength that we have in the connections that we form. So for instance, as people get Alzheimer's disease, even though they've been in America for 30 years, all of a sudden they are unable to speak English. However, if they came from France, they can still speak French. That's because long-term memories and those connections are much firmer and stronger than the newly learned memories for a language. Now, you have to remember, but there also is procedural memory, and that in fact, as we get Alzheimer's disease, we actually forget how to walk, how to dress, how to do many of the things that come automatic to us. In fact, one of the early signs is that you cannot do those procedures which were second nature to you. I remember one of my patients who was a physician who would do this procedure maybe 1,000 times a year. And all of a sudden, when he was given the tray of surgical tools, he couldn't figure out which one to use. Now, how do we use neurobics, and how does it fit into the hormonal symphony? Once again, it is up with the good, and down with the bad. Neurobics, in fact, can cause us to relax. It can divert our attention. It can turn on the optimistic center of the brain, which produces dopamine and serotonin. It can increase our executive functioning. It increases the growth of cells. It can increase and influence growth hormone, testosterone. However, the lack of the use of our brain, in fact, makes the pessimistic center stronger. And one of the reasons why it increases our stress is because as our brain capacity decreases, everyday problems become more and more difficult to deal with. And so we find that it's up with the bad and down with the good. If we use our neurobics, it's up with the good and decreases the bad because we're still able to very well take care of the problems that face us in everyday life. Neurobics is essential.